walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace. I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem. I immediately deployed the National Guard and federal law enforcement to secure the building and expel the intruders. America is and must always be a nation of law and order. The demonstrators who infiltrated the Capitol have defiled the seat of American democracy. To those who engaged in the acts of violence and destruction, you do not represent our country. And to those who broke the law, you will pay. We have just been through an intense election, and emotions are high. But now tempers must be cooled and calm restored. We must get on with the business of America. My campaign vigorously pursued every legal avenue to contest the election results. My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections. Now Congress has certified the results. A new administration will be inaugurated on January 20th. My focus now turns to ensuring a smooth, orderly, and seamless transition of power. This moment calls for healing and reconciliation. 2020 has been a challenging time for our people. A menacing pandemic has upended the lives of our citizens, isolated millions in their homes, damaged our economy, and claimed countless lives. Defeating this pandemic and rebuilding the greatest economy on earth will require all of us working together. It will require a renewed emphasis on the civic values of patriotism, faith, charity, community, and family. We must revitalize the sacred bonds of love and loyalty that bind us together as one national family. To the citizens of our country, serving as your president has been the honor of my lifetime. And to all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Hello, today is April 15th, 2021. It's been almost 4 months since my last coronavirus update, and obviously we are still dealing with the virus, with the fallout from it, and not much has changed. I'm going to go ahead and read off some statistics. I'll lose this. This is just for dramatic effect. We still have to wear the masks. We still need a social distance, and depending on where you live, you're not going to be able to eat in restaurants still. It's just getting old. But so, as of now, there are 139,416,459 cases of coronavirus reported worldwide. There have been 2,992,358 deaths, so we're around the cusp of 3 million people dead from this coronavirus pandemic. Here in the United States, there have been more than 32 million cases reported worldwide. 32,168,325 cases to be exact. There have been 578,285 deaths. And here in Oregon, where I live, there are more than 172,000 reported infections. There have been 2,463 deaths. And here in Jackson County, where I live specifically, there are 9,760 reported infections of COVID-19. 126 people have died. Now, I should point out that since December, you probably remember that before Donald Trump left office, the vaccines, pharmaceutical companies began manufacturing vaccines for immediate deployment. They started vaccinating people as early as December of last year. And so, as of now, as of the middle of April, 195 million doses of coronavirus vaccine has been given to Americans. 76.7 million Americans are fully vaccinated. 23% of the American population is fully vaccinated. Here in Oregon, 2.42 million doses have been given to Oregonians. So our population is around 4 million, so that's pretty good. We got about half the population. Unfortunately, though, 970,000 Oregonians are fully vaccinated at this time. 23% of Oregonians have been vaccinated. So we're getting there. Every Oregon resident will be eligible to receive the coronavirus vaccine by April 19th. So we're just 4 days away. I, for one, can't wait to get my shot. I would like to be protected, even though I'm not in one of the at-risk groups. I'm 41. I don't have any underlying health conditions, but it'll sure be nice to have that reassurance that if I do get sick, maybe the virus will weaken it and I won't pass it to someone else and they won't die because of me. So that's something to look forward to. President Biden has required all Americans to be eligible for vaccination by April 19th, 2021. All 50 states. 3 pharmaceutical companies have been tasked with developing coronavirus vaccines, including Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. It should be noted that the latter vaccine has been suspended following reports of some people developing blood clots after receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Alright, so that's just where we stand right now in terms of the coronavirus. A lot of people are curious about when this pandemic will be over. And unfortunately, even though we're being vaccinated, the government still prefers to err on the side of caution, and they do not want to even speculate about when the pandemic will end. So by all accounts, the vaguest they've been, somebody said, well, we're still several months away from ending the pandemic. So that could mean to the end of this year, it could be into 2022. It's rather vague. I don't like politicians when they can't give you straight answers, but you know, that's something we're used to now. Anyway, I wanted to also discuss what happened to Donald Trump. He lost the election, of course, in November. Everybody voted for Biden. You know, quote unquote, everybody voted for Biden. Anyway, Donald Trump was a sore loser. He refused to accept that he lost the election. He challenged the results repeatedly, and what happened was there was an attack in Washington, D.C. A large group of protesters attacked the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And I'll read about that. If you want to read everything about it, Wikipedia has a very lengthy article. We're only going to discuss the highlights. So, the 2021 storming of the United States Capitol was a riot and violent attack against the United States Congress at the US Capitol on January 6, 2021. It was carried out by a mob of supporters of Donald Trump, the 45th president, in a failed attempt to overturn his defeat to Joe Biden in the November 2020 presidential election. Part of the 2020-21 U.S. election protests, the attack disrupted the joint session of Congress assembled to count the electoral votes to formalize Biden's victory. The District of Columbia was placed under curfew, and lawmakers were evacuated while rioters occupied and vandalized the building for several hours. 5 people died and more than 140 were injured. Called to action by Trump, thousands of his supporters had gathered in Washington, D.C. on January 5th and 6th in support of his false claims that the 2020 election had been stolen from him, and to demand that Vice President Mike Pence and Congress reject Biden's victory. On the morning of January 6th, at a Save America rally on the Ellipse, Trump repeated false claims of election irregularities and said, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. At his encouragement, thousands of protesters then walked to the Capitol, where Congress was beginning the electoral vote count. Many in the crowd at the Capitol breached police perimeters, stormed the building, occupying, vandalizing, and looting it for several hours. They assaulted Capitol police officers and reporters, erected gallows on the Capitol grounds, and attempted to locate lawmakers to take hostage and harm. They chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," blaming him for not rejecting the Electoral College votes, although he lacked the constitutional authority to do so. The rioters targeted House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, vandalizing and looting her offices, as well as those of other members of Congress. Upon security being breached, Capitol Police evacuated the Senate and House of Representatives chambers. Several buildings in the Capitol complex were evacuated, and all were locked down. Rioters occupied and ransacked the empty Senate chamber, while federal law enforcement officers drew handguns to defend the evacuated House floor. Pipe bombs were found at the offices of the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee, and Molotov cocktails were discovered in a vehicle near the Capitol. Trump resisted sending the D.C. National Guard to quell the mob. In a Twitter video, he continued to assert that the election was fraudulent, but told his supporters to go home in peace. The Capitol was cleared of rioters by mid-evening, and the counting of the electoral votes resumed and was completed in the early morning hours of January 7th. Pence declared President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris victors and affirmed that they would assume office on January 20th. Pressured by his administration, the threat of removal, and numerous resignations, Trump later committed to an orderly transition of power in a televised statement. The assault on the Capitol was widely condemned by political leaders and organizations in the United States and internationally. Mitch McConnell, then Senate Majority Leader, called the storming of the Capitol a failed insurrection and said the Senate will not bow to lawlessness or intimidation. Several social media and technology companies suspended or banned Trump's accounts from their platforms. Many business organizations cut ties with him. A week after the riot, the House of Representatives impeached Trump for incitement of insurrection, making him the only U.S. president to have been impeached twice. Pelosi announced an independent commission modeled after the 9/11 Commission to investigate the attack. Christopher Wray, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, later characterized the incident as domestic terrorism. Opinion polls showed that a large majority of Americans disapproved of the storming of the Capitol and of Trump's actions leading up to and following it, although many Republicans supported the attack or at least did not blame Trump for it. As part of the investigations into the attack, the FBI opened up more than 400 subject case files and more than 500 grand jury subpoenas and search warrants were issued. More than 300 people were charged with federal crimes. Dozens of people present at the riot were later found to be listed in the FBI's terrorist screening database, most as suspected white supremacists. Members of the anti-government parliamentary Oath Keepers and neo-fascist Proud Boys groups were indicted on conspiracy charges for allegedly staging planned missions in the Capitol. The second impeachment of Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, occurred on January 13, 2021, 1 week before his term expired. It was the fourth impeachment of a United States President and the second for Trump after his first impeachment in December 2019. 10 Republican representatives voted for the second impeachment, the most pro-impeachment votes ever from a president's party. This was also the first presidential impeachment in which all majority caucus members voted unanimously for impeachment. The House of Representatives of the 117th U.S. Congress adopted one article of impeachment against Trump of incitement of insurrection, alleging that Trump incited the January 6th storming of the U.S. Capitol. These events were preceded by numerous unsuccessful attempts by Trump to overturn the 2020 presidential election, as well as his pushing of voter fraud conspiracy theories on his social media channels before, during, and after the election. A single article of impeachment, charging Trump with incitement of insurrection against the U.S. government and lawless action at the Capitol, was introduced to the House of Representatives on January 11, 2021. The article was introduced with more than 200 co-sponsors. The same day, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi gave Vice President Mike Pence an ultimatum to invoke Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to assume the role of acting president within 24 hours, or the House would proceed with impeachment proceedings. Pence stated that he would not do so in a letter to Pelosi the following day, arguing that to do so would not be in the best interest of our nation or consistent with our Constitution. Nevertheless, a House majority, including one Republican, passed a resolution urging Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment. The House impeachment managers formally triggered the start of the impeachment trial on January 25th by delivering to the Senate the charge against Trump. The 9 managers walked into the Senate chamber led by the lead impeachment manager, Representative Jamie Raskin, who read the article of impeachment. The trial in the Senate was scheduled to start on February 9th. Chief Justice John Roberts chose not to preside as he had done for Trump's first impeachment trial. The President pro tempore of the Senate, Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy, presided instead. At the trial, the first of its kind for a departed U.S. president, with Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Trump having each been the incumbent in prior impeachment trials, 67 votes, or a two-thirds majority, was needed to convict Trump. Ultimately, 57 senators voted guilty, and 43 senators voted not guilty, resulting in Trump being acquitted of the charge on February 13th, 2021. So, it's just been a roller coaster, folks. America is in chaos. This country is, it's on the ropes, people. And if you're like me, you're wondering, what can I do about it? I think right now the best thing you can do is pray. Just pray that Joe Biden can deliver. And that we return to some sense of normalcy in the future. I'm going to do a little brief update on what's been going on in our country. Talk about the coronavirus. We talked about Donald Trump's impeachment. Anyway, the fact that he wasn't impeached does mean that he can run for re-election in 2024. So it should be very interesting to see what happens over the next 4 years.